TVS is bound by codes of practice registered with the Australian Communications and Media Authority. If you wish to comment on our programs, please email programs@tvs.org.au or write to us at Lockbag 1797, Penrith South, DC 1797. You're watching TVS.
Hi again. We have a very interesting yet controversial guest, John Bursill, and very interesting because we are going to talk about 9/11.
We are just running up to the anniversary, the 9th anniversary of 9/11.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So it's been 8 years.
8 years and nearly 9 years this anniversary.
Now, I met you the same day, the same minute I met the roller derby girls at the markets at Newtown.
Wow, there you go.
So there you go. So if you want interesting people, you go to Newtown. And we bumped into each other and you recognised me from the show and we started chatting and you know, you were actually handing out pamphlets for your, would you call it an organisation or a following? How would you describe what you do?
Well, I'm a spokesman in Sydney and an activist for 9/11 Truth, and we're just a group of citizens that are looking into the evidence and looking into comparing what we've been told about 9/11 and what we actually see as has happened. So consequently, we put on films and we do demonstrations and protests, and we've got a protest 9/11 Truth for Peace on this anniversary at the War Memorial.
All right. Now, why are we still talking about 9/11?
Well, the problem with 9/11 is...
And also, I mean, look, I mean, I have this show because we do some really edgy stuff on this show, and it's great that I'm allowed to, but at the same time, I think it's good to kind of like challenge people as well, nicely, not rudely, but basically, I mean, we're in Australia. I mean, why are Australians concerned about what happened at 9/11 8 years later?
Okay, well, there's quite a few reasons. Obviously, we're part of the coalition of the willing. Some people might call the coalition of the killing that went to fight in Afghanistan because of 9/11, and we've lost 21 soldiers now in battle in Afghanistan. We've lost many also in Iraq, and you can make the argument that the Iraq War was also generated out of the War on Terror and the 9/11 events.
Because you can say that there have been very deep, you know, global and historical repercussions from
absolutely.
All right, now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What's your theory on 9/11? What really happened?
Well, I don't have any theory on 9/11. What I have is a lot of questions, and we have a lot of evidence that gives us an idea about something happening other than we were told. Now, I'm an engineer. I'm not a building engineer, I'm an aircraft engineer, but I'm a part of a group called Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. There's nearly 1,300 of us now, including many structural engineers, doctors at Sydney University, people, structural engineers that work for government in this country that question the building collapses on 9/11, especially around the third tower, Building 7, that fell at absolute free fall for 100 feet of its fall. It fell at 9.81 metres per second acceleration. Well, free fall is if I dropped a steel ball off the roof of the building, that building was falling that fast and it wasn't hit by a plane. So there was 3 buildings and 2 planes. Now, World Trade Center 7 is very mysterious, and the thing is that we have witnesses saying there was explosives and explosions, and we have in the dust now, we found unexploded nanothermite in the dust and also other evidence. Well, it's a high-tech explosive incendiary charge, which is the latest technology out of only the top labs inside America and possibly other places in the world. And we find that in the samples of dust. All right. Scientists have found that in the samples.
I remember when 9/11 happened, there was a website, and it was about 15 pages long, and I did get onto it. I forget what it was called, but it was about the truth of 9/11, and it was just too much to gobble up at the time. I mean, I read the whole thing. And it was over the top. It was quite amazing.
Well, there's a couple of things I suggest people do. There's one film that's out that I really recommend, which you can get at Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. So that's AE911truth.org. And
okay, this is a .org. Any .orgs.
And you can watch that free online, and that's called Blueprint for Truth: The Architecture of Destruction, and that goes through a PowerPoint presentation live with the studio audience. You know, explaining the nitty-gritty of the building collapses and how it's impossible to be without what we say added energy.
Well, I remember seeing a film of the building that the plane collapsed in the military area, and apparently there were photographs showing that it actually wasn't a plane crash that could create that damage because there was no smoke. It was just, it literally it looked like it was exploded from within rather than a crash.
Okay, this is at the Pentagon you're talking about. Okay, yeah, there's lots of questions around the Pentagon. I personally don't have a view. I don't think the evidence demonstrates anything clearly, but what we do know is there's lots of video evidence of the plane hitting the Pentagon, but it's never been released. Only a very small amount of video footage has been released. So there's lots of questions, and the thing is that they don't, with the two building crashes, so for example, the digital flight data recorders and the voice recorders, the fire brigade, out of 4 boxes of the 2 aircraft that hit the Twin Towers, the fire brigade said that they found 3 of those boxes, but then later we were told none of them were found. They are the first ground-based aircraft accidents in the history of the world where the boxes have not been recovered because they're impervious to fire and to massive G-force.
Interesting, very, very interesting. After, it's interesting after all this time and on the other side of the world that I guess people want to know the truth.
They do, yeah, because it changed foreign policy. Like, we're involved in Afghanistan in an illegal war in every way, in shape and form.
So history does repeat itself. Why do countries always want to go to war?
Well, I mean, war's a racket. There's a lot of money to be made in war. If you understand the American economy, you'd realise that the military-industrial complex, which is what Eisenhower warned when he left power back in the 50s, he warned that this group was so powerful that it would create its own wars, so that the money could be spent from the taxpayer to the corporations to make their money.
All right, now what have we got here? We've got these little cards here. We've got...
That's an event that we ran last year that went to Sydney, Brisbane and also Melbourne and over to New Zealand in Wellington, and it was called the Hard Evidence Tour. You can find out about that at thehardevidence.com.
Okay,
but
cool.
Yeah, that's just something we handed out, just an example of the sort of events we put on. This is just evidence from the Architects and Engineers group of just why we should question the building collapses on 9/11, and this is about Building 7. About the Twin Towers, this one. Just the rapid onset of collapse, the near free fall speed, and basically the building, everybody was looking up at the buildings. There's some new footage that's come out recently. No one thought those buildings were going to collapse. About 10%, 20% of the structure of the buildings was damaged by the plane impact, but the buildings were standing, and then they turned to dust. Literally, there was metal and dust left, nothing else. Now, how can that happen without explosives? And looking at that, does that look like an explosion, or does that look like a collapse? If you have a close look, there's actually streamers firing out.
That's an explosion.
That's what it looks like. Looks like a banana. Smells like a banana. Tastes like a banana. Probably is a banana. But we need to get a proper inquiry.
And what have we got here? We've got some interesting currency as well.
Well, this is actually a method that 9/11 Truth activists came up with, getting the word out early on, not being so dark, using like sort of a joke with this currency. They're called deception dollars, and they had a lot of websites on them, and they point out a lot of the evidence around 9/11, and about 8 million of those have been handed out worldwide by activists.
Well, interesting. All right, very interesting. A little bit heavy.
It is heavy. It is heavy, but our children's future and the peace of the world possibly could rely on 9/11 Truth as an exposure of what governments might do to go to war.
Interesting. And very quickly, it'd be difficult for you to have this say on mainstream TV, wouldn't it?
It has made mainstream television. It was actually on news hour what was it, CBS Nightline had an article just this week. When we went to New Zealand, the equivalent of the 7:30 report reported on our event. So it does make, and I've had interviews on mainstream radio stations across the country, so it does break through from time to time.
Well, I think the next big wave of publicity will be on the 10th anniversary, won't it?
That's right. It's coming up in about a year and a few weeks' time.
Big questions.
They will, and there's been rallies in New York of literally thousands and thousands of people, and on the 10th anniversary we probably expect 10, 15,000 people to go to New York on that day to protest.
All right, John Bursill, Mr. 9/11.
Thank you.
The truth. Thanks again. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye for now.